I am curious about the figure of 11.5. What's that based on? I mean, it seems to me like the LCDC got their line of credit or loan or whatever it's called, and somehow this is kind of the max, and therefore, you know, I mean, we don't have bids, do we? I mean, so I don't really know what the figure is actually based on. It seems to me like it's based on money-driven as opposed to following a bid or following a RFP or whatever. And I have not seen anything that specifically says why that figure. I mean, normally, and I've watched the LCDC for years, when people approach the LCDC for funding, they have a plan and they have specific documents and needs, and those are presented and then funded based on that. And this doesn't seem to be following that, because, I mean, we haven't really seen construction documents or bids or anything like that. It's just, it's almost like, you know, one of my criticisms of LCDC is that there's no plan. It just kind of happens. And is economic development, as many people say, it's the only tool for economic development we have. But in this case, it seems like it's the only tool we have to get money without having to go to a vote of the people. Because in the other tool that we have from the legislature is a bond. And we could have a bond that would not only fund the park that the plan is, but, you know, that could build a baseball stadium and could move a boat ramp if we wanted to go to a bond. But then we have to go to a vote of the people. And that, to me, seems the proper way to be doing this. And right now, we're kind of conveniently using the LCDC maxing out their line of credit for $11.5 million, and we don't even know what we're paying for yet as far as what the construction costs actually will be. So it seems to me that this is an abuse of urban renewal, which I question. Further, in the whereases on this resolution, on the agreement for financing improvements, it says, whereas the City Council adopted its ordinance number 3337 on August 19th, 2008. Mr. Adams and I were not here, but the rest of the council and mayor were. So we're referring to that plan, the Second Amendment, the Lake District Second Amended and Restated Urban Renewal Plan, called the plan. I requested a copy of that, and I do remember when that happened, and it was my recollection that the ordinance was specifically to annex Sorensen School into the Lake City District. And if you read the ordinance, most of it does deal with Sorensen. As far as projects, I mean, it says, referring back, you know, that this is a plan and that the agency is borrowing money to carrying out the purposes and various projects under the plan. So I read the ordinance, and it actually says, this second amended and restated plan does not represent a precise plan nor establish specific projects for the redevelopment, rehabilitation, and revitalization of any area within the second amended and restated project area, nor does this second amended and restated plan present specific proposals in an attempt to solve or alleviate the concerns and problems of the community. So it specifically states there is no plan and there is no project. Now, I could drop it right there and say, hey, you know, this is supposed to be, we're borrowing this money predicated on this ordinance, which specifically says there is no project. Therefore, how bad are we bending the law here? But I did read it further, and it does mention on page 7 that the Lake District Strategic Plan is to include implementation of McEuen Field Conceptual Plan. So it is mentioned, and this is in 2008, remember. Specifically on page 8, it says, help to implement the City Council approved McEuen Field Plan. Part of the plan is to locate new public space for the relocation of the American Legion ball field. So this is mentioned in 2008. Also in 2008, around about the same time, the city adopted and still holds as city policy the Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And in that master plan, it refers to McEuen Field. So I'm tying these two things together, 2008 ordinance, 2008 master plan as far as what's going to be done regarding McEuen. McEuen Field is, this is from the master plan. McEuen Field is part of the downtown complex of parks located next to the public parking area in City Hall. The city should implement Walker Macy's McEuen Field master plan. Additional capital improvement and maintenance recommendations include providing improved restroom, keeping with the character of the signature site, hydraulic irrigation system, a pump house to withdraw water from the lake, replace the tennis courts if consistent with the master plan, and replace play equipment on the west side of the park. And again, these are things we're seeing in the current plan, but we're talking about funding based on a 2008 ordinance, and this was the plan. I also found it interesting that in the Parks Master Plan it says, referring to the ball fields at McEuen Field, the McEuen Fields should remain until a replacement is constructed. Again, that's city policy. On July 14th of 2008, the Planning Department sent out this letter, which refers to Objective 313 Parks, support the development and acquisition and maintenance of property and facilities for the current and future use as described in the Parks Master Plan. So again, we're talking about this Parks Master Plan in 2008. Hopping back to the ordinance actually has and refers to, with regards to McEuen Field, Table 3, which is the cash flow detail of the Lake District amended plan. So this is what we're funding now, specifically. It's talking about two things that are relevant to McEuen. Number one, under capital projects, it says building structure, parking structure, building. The amount mentioned for that is $5.6 million. But this is a parking structure north of Lakeside between 3rd and 4th. Regarding McEuen, there's an item, number 6, under other obligations. And it's specifically footnoted. It says, includes allocations for Midtown placemaking, IHFA workforce housing, and McEuen Field Master Plan implementation. And the amount mentioned in there, projected to be spent in 2016 through 2018, is $3.5 million. For working on McEuen, obviously, based on my reading of this, to implement the Walker Macy plan. So I'm just curious why we're trying to fund $11.5 million when the ordinance we're referring to and the related city documents that existed in 2008 do refer to McEuen. Walker Macy plan, $3.5 million. So question, I guess, for Mr. Gridley is, can we do this?
Well, without studying the documents you've just shared with us, I am hesitant to fully comment on it. However, this council is not bound specifically by previous councils. So I think when you talk about master plans and master ideas like that, this council, I think, has adopted a different plan subsequent to that. The documents, again, I don't have them in front of me, but generally they are planning documents and authorization for a project in a particular area. The details are fluid. The details are to be amended. The details are to be determined at the time when the project's done. So, again, I have not seen anything that would preclude going forward with this type of agreement or this project even based on what you've just recited. So I'd have to study exactly word for word what you presented, but I have not seen anything that would preclude it because they are vague, because the planning process goes on and on. The sitting council has approved the latest iteration of the plan, so I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to connect, you know, when we're justifying borrowing this, and the justification is listed in the agreement up front. It says, whereas, you know, A, B, and C, and D is happening. I mean, I didn't even get into the first set, which talked about how it was in the best interests of the community, because I have an issue with that, too. But I think, you know, referring to this ordinance as the plan, my opinion is that's just too weak. And I think if it was for the $3.5 million that's mentioned in the plan, I think that would be 100%. And that would be fine. I'm not going to offer a substitute motion for $3.5 million because I know it would fail, but that's my take on it, Madam Mayor, and I just don't think that this is kosher enough to go through based on what's said in these documents.
Okay. Other discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor,